to everybody here in Liverpool and to those of you watching us online from somewhere across the world, I guess. Welcome to Liverpool virtually. We are now moving into our next session. Just a little housekeeping note that I did forget to mention at the beginning. We aren't supposed to have any liquid in this room due to the microphone system. So I don't think water and the microphones probably is a good mix. So those of you that have snuck one in, please hold on tightly to them. We do have another break in 45 minutes, so you can replenish your hydration levels then. So on with our programme this morning. Like to hand over to our next panel, to Melanie Leech from BPF. We were talking about inclusive communities. Thanks, Melanie.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, everybody, virtually and in the room. I've got another fantastic panel for you over the next 45 minutes, and if I learnt one thing from our first panel, it's that we're going to struggle to really engage and open up the conversations and develop them as much as I'm sure we would all want to, but we will do our best. We will canter through very quickly a conversation over the next 45 minutes around inclusive communities and how we make sure that as Liverpool levels up across the region, we ensure that that's done in a way which is inclusive both of existing communities as well as potentially new residents and new people coming into the city region to live and work. That's going to take us into regeneration. That's going to take us into talking about different parts of the city region. It's going to take us into talking about investment potential and I think crucially about something that's already been touched on in the first panel, which is around that critical issue of creating the right jobs, of attracting and retaining talent to the city region. So massive agenda. So without further ado, I'm going to perhaps introduce each of our panelists as I invite them to speak for the first time. So I'm going to turn first to Rob Deacon, Senior Asset Manager at Grosvenor. And Rob, ask you maybe just to kick us off by talking about Liverpool One and how that's supported the regeneration of the city centre and the knock-on effect of that into the wider city region and the social impact that's delivered.
Yeah, thank you, Melanie. I don't think it's possible in the 3 minutes that I've been allotted to do justice to the impact that Liverpool One has had. Not only is the largest regeneration scheme in Liverpool, but probably in the UK in the last 25 years. I'll do my best, and hopefully we can talk a bit more on the tour for those of you who are joining that later on. And so what is Liverpool One for those that don't know? So it is a 42-acre mixed-use retail-led scheme that sits in the heart of Liverpool city centre. It sort of kicked off in the late 1990s, the council vision to regenerate what was known as the Paradise Street development area that we know now as Liverpool One, which is to connect the heart of the city on Church Street to the Albert Dock and the waterfront. I think we can all agree, for those that know Liverpool One, that it has certainly done that. What does it comprise? It comprises 170 retail and leisure units, a cinema, free car parks, office accommodation, residential, and as well as a 5-acre open park, probably Liverpool's premier green open space. There were 30 different buildings within Liverpool One. It had 26 individual architects, which gives it that individuality. It very much fits into the city centre itself. It's open air, uncovered, follows the existing streetscape of the city that pre-existed it very purposely, isn't covered, it doesn't have an entrance and an exit. It knits exactly into the city and contributes in that way. And you can sort of see when the scheme opened in 2008, which coincided with Liverpool's tenure as European Capital of Culture, the catalyst that gave to investment and regeneration spreading out from Liverpool One, almost in particular on the waterfront, the arena and convention centre probably being the best example. In terms of community social impact, obviously there was 3,000 jobs created during the construction phase, and we now support 5,000 jobs in our units going forward. Not to mention a big boost to business rates payable and a ground rent also to the council. It continues to be a space which is used by the core catchment in particular, who still make up around 50% of our footfall. And that's sort of evidence in sort of the stats that we see in terms of footfall and sales. Footfall this year, I've been told, and to get some stats in, so I'll do that. We're 9% down on 2019 pre-COVID, which is way far ahead of UK benchmarks and other city centres, and sales are actually 21% positive to where they were in 2019. Again, testament to the lure and the brands that we've been able to attract to Liverpool One, given the underlying fundamentals of both the scheme and the city, which we've sort of touched on already in the conversations. So yeah, that's sort of my brief introduction to Liverpool One. As I said, and hopefully speak to many of you later on today and on the tour with some more detail.
Thanks very much, Rob. And I think you deserve a prize for being the first and probably the only speaker, possibly the only speaker today. And certainly, I can't remember the last time I heard someone mention business rates in a vaguely positive context. So I think you definitely deserve a prize for that. Lisa, can I turn to you next? Tell us a little bit about how St Helens is working with developers and investors to create a diverse housing mix in the town centre and the opportunities you're creating in St Helens.
Thank you, thanks. So for those of you who don't know, St Helens is an industrial town within the city region. We're a town full of history, a place where passenger transport was born, and a place where the first industrial canal is. And very much we recognise what our strengths are in our area. We're really strong at industry and really strong at research and innovation in that industrial setting. I always say it's the first place I've ever worked that you can build a 65-metre stack and don't get one objection at all from any resident. So it is a place that the people of the place really want to do business and really want to make things happen. So one of the exciting projects that we've got at the moment is our town centre regeneration programme. So working with our partners ECF, which is Muse, we are developing a retail core, or concentrating our retail core, it's probably better to say, creating a new offer for our retail, delivering better hotel accommodation to support that business community surrounding, but also creating new places to live within our city centre, our town centres as well. So that's not an offer that will compete with our city centres, very different offer in a town. It's not the suburban housing maybe that we offer as well, and we got quite a huge offer there with 3 significant greenfield sites coming forward of over 1,000 units each. So, but the town is very much about creating a new offer, a new residential offer for towns, really, that people want space, but they also want all the convenience of living in a town centre. Our opportunities, however, for our town centre are not just about our town centre, it's about what the town centre can actually deliver to the town itself. So the town itself is about to expand quite significantly. I've mentioned the 3 significant housing sites that we've got: Bold Forest Garden suburbs, and you can't say that when you're in a rush, that's for sure, of 3,000 units. And we really want that to be the greenest place to live in the city region. We will, on Thursday, adopt our local plan after some significant years, and therefore it's now about us moving on with all of those development opportunities. And as I say, for us, it's all about green development opportunities, and development opportunities that actually give back social value to the area as well. We've just done our economic impact assessment, and what we want is development that's good for the environment, good for people, and good for the economy as well, and most importantly, good for our investors and our partners as well. So another first in St Helens was our Glass Futures development, and I think this just evidences how we can take an idea and how we can take an opportunity and how we can turn it into something that's good for all of those people. So Glass Futures is a research and development sector. It's to create glass in a non-carbon environment, which, if you know how glass manufacturers are massively carbon intensive. St Helens is the home of flat glass, home to Pilkingtons, and so glass is in our DNA, and we're building a building, 50 million square foot building. It's including a 30 kilowatt furnace, and it will experiment with all the glass industry. So that's glass industry across the world will come together to experiment in the manufacture of glass. On the back of that, we're looking to bring in glass medical manufacturing. Glass medical manufacturing, who would know? We've all had our injections for our pandemic, but who would know we don't make one glass medical file in this country at the moment. So our aim is to bring that back into the country, but most importantly, back into the home of glass as well. So that's just some of our research and innovation that we're looking for. And our intention is also to create an innovation camp surrounding those areas. So taking that idea of industry, decarbonising industry, and taking that one step further to our small and medium enterprises as well. And then our last opportunity, I suppose, or our major opportunity, is Parkside West. And Parkside is our Freeport site. Parkside is the largest site in the city region for economic development. It's 2 component parks, Parkside West, Parkside East. Parkside West is owned by the council, part owned by the council in partnership with Langtree. And we are looking to develop that site, and we're just building the infrastructure for that site as we speak. Our £55 million new road is being built as we speak. And that's first phase is for logistics, second phase is we're looking for advanced manufacturing. And then the other, Parkside East, is a rail freight enabled site, which is we're looking to bring forward probably in the post 2025. And we're working with government at the moment because the infrastructure that's required for that site is significant. It's of national infrastructure scale. So there is lots going on in St Helens, lots of different offers for lots of different people, but we know what we're good at. We know where our vision is. And we want to be the best part of the city region to complement the other areas, which I'm sure you're going to hear lots more of today.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Next, I'm going to turn to Stephen Watson, Executive Director at Sefton Council. Stephen, Bootle's already had a mention this morning, but tell us a little bit more about the key drivers of investment into Bootle and your ambitions.
Thanks, Melanie, and thanks for the opportunity to join today. Throughout the morning, we will hear about the breadth of exciting opportunity across the city region, and there's a huge amount of opportunity across Sefton, the borough that stretches just north of the city up to Southport, from the port to Liverpool, up the finest stretch of coast in the country to Southport, which is the resort that inspired Baron Haussmann's reconstruction of Paris. But the reason Nick mentioned Bootle this morning is because we'd argue that there is no more exciting opportunity on that long list than the future of Bootle. The local authority acquired the Strand Shopping Centre in the heart of the town centre in 2017, not for commercial purposes, but to drive regeneration and to start to catalyse the re-energising of the town centre, driving an increase in footfall, in dwell time, spend, as well as supporting new business startups and supporting local businesses, trying to revitalise the nighttime economy that was once famous in Bootle and in reality doesn't exist now in Bootle. But also looking to drive up land values, attracting wood investments and development, and from our point of view, certainly support the creation of the quantity and quality of employment careers opportunities that our local people need and deserve. The opportunity in Bootle is underpinned by a fantastic starting point, proximity to the city. Much of the port of Liverpool is in Sefton. You can walk down the canal from Bootle to Everton Football Club's new stadium. We're 8 minutes on the train from the city centre into Bootle. There's incredible public transport links. And around all of this, we have a community that's engaged and passionate about its place and about its future. So when we talk about our emerging vision for the future of these spaces, not just in the town centre but across all of Bootle, it's something that has the whole town engaged and the whole town behind it, which is an incredibly exciting platform. But that reflects how we together consult and engage on the future of place. And when we think about what the council can do, we bring a role in that consultation, engagement, relationship management, development with communities. But also it's local authority that recognises where it needs support. We aren't going to do this alone. So it's understanding what do we bring and what do we need around us. And we're open to ideas, options, opportunities. There's a chance to help shape this in a way that works for our partners. We're passionately of the view that the social and environmental outcomes that we aspire to do not have to be in conflict with the financial and commercial outcomes that it has to deliver. And that's no different for us. We need the Strand, for example, the shopping centre to be financially sustainable, but that doesn't have to be at the expense of the broader outcomes we're working towards. The other thing I'd say, Melanie, is you asked about ambitions for Bootle, and ambition is the right word. It's ambitious, it's aspirational, and that particularly for young people is how we want to position the future of Bootle, particularly as well as the whole borough. The name Bootle comes from the word bold. So what we'd hope you'd see in all of this is there's a boldness to this. There's a confidence here. But we are at the start of something incredibly exciting. But hopefully that's part of the opportunity. There's an opportunity here to shape that, develop that together with partners as well as with communities. It's going to be an incredibly exciting next 10 years for us.
Thank you very much indeed, Stephen. I'm going to turn to Chris Capes next. As I do that, thank you to the person who has just posted a question on Slido. Slido is being a bit slow to wake up this morning, which is something to do with all of you, I think. So please do post some questions for me to ask my fantastic panel in the chat, and I will get to as many of them as I can. But before I do that, Chris Capes from Peel, the Development Director at Liverpool Waters, which some of us who've been privileged to be in the room and part of the party over the last 24 hours have already heard a little bit about. But tell us a little bit more about Liverpool Waters and how it's being developed to support not just homes, but those jobs that are so critical, and its role in the sort of regeneration of the city region.
Thank you, Melanie. It's really interesting to listen to what everybody else is saying, actually, and it starts to make you think about some of the key factors that we're working on and how important it is that what we're all doing is connected. So, some of the things I've got written down that I wanted to mention are about that connectivity. There's about 3 people just today have said, how are you connecting up from south to north on the site? Then you think about what's happening in Bootle and the opportunities up there, and you think about actually from a city perspective, how do we connect city centre out to the new Everton Stadium? And these are all really key factors for us, and important for us when we're thinking about the development of Liverpool Waters and how we get that mix right, and that how we draw people effectively through the site. The questions was really about what role do we play, and I think an important point about it not just being residential development. We have a huge amount of commercial square footage in our site. We have a huge amount of retail square footage, and I think it'd be fair to say, and Tony referenced it this morning, we're having a bit of a rethink about what that mix is now. We were granted planning 10 years ago, and we've got circa half the amount of space for retail that is currently in Liverpool 1. So that's not necessarily something we're going to deliver on site, but we know we need to get that mix right for the creation of jobs, for the creation of the place, and to provide that, I suppose that functional community that we're striving for. So key factors for us as well. Another point I think is around our housing mix. We're quite dense, but we also need to make sure that actually what we're delivering invites families in. We're spending a lot of time looking at other developments in London and in Europe about how they deliver the space for families to occupy, but also deliver the facilities around it. So we've got a new 2-hectare park, which is about the same size as Shavas Park. We've just been out to consultation on that to get input from the local communities and from residents and businesses on how they will use it. And I think starting to think about how we provide those points throughout the site, which are sort of the stepping stones from the centre of Liverpool all the way up to the Everton Stadium, are going to be the key test of whether we are delivering a genuinely mixed use and a scheme that drives the economy. I think the other key point is it's not just Liverpool Waters. So you've got Liverpool Waters, which sits on the riverside of the Wall, but then you've got the 10 Streets regen area, which again is probably another sort of 10, 15, 20 20-year, if not beyond, development opportunity. And that will deliver commercial, that will deliver jobs and opportunities. So we're not going to replicate what happens there, but we have to be very cognizant of exactly what's going to be delivered. And I suppose recognising Liverpool Waters as a genuine catalyst for the north of Liverpool is really key. So I suppose, you know, one final point, the thing that does keep me awake at night is getting that mix right, because in 20 years' time, when we've delivered Liverpool Waters, you know, myself and Appeal team want to look back and say, you know, we got it right, and we've created a place and neighbourhoods where people want to live and thrive.
Great, thank you very much, Chris. And last but by no means least, John Lewis, Managing Director of SOG Limited. And actually, Heath Park's already had a mention as well this morning. So tell us a little bit more about the plans for Heath Park, and in particular your ambitions around environmental and social impact.
Morning, everyone. Yes, I am John Lewis, and no, I don't run a retail store in Liverpool. I just wanted to get that out there. Liverpool. I'm born and bred here, listening today, what's going on. I've said for many years, in 20 years' time, there's no reason why Liverpool can't be the second city, as it was 200 years ago. We've got so much to offer and we can grow. And we are part of a city region as well. And I'm on the outside, outskirts, Runcorn, Halton. But we all the different boroughs contribute to the Liverpool brand, and it is a phenomenal brand. So from an investment point of view, yeah, this is the place to invest, because this is the place that's growing in so many ways. Now, my last 25 years, I've been involved in regeneration. So I'll take you very quickly through my journey of saving something, regenerating something, pausing, through collaboration, replicating something, then coming back with that learning to develop something once again in a different way. So we acquired the old ICI site, the Heath, which was constructed in the 60s, and it was the headquarters for Mon Division, which became chemical and polymers. By the 90s, the chemical industry was declining rapidly, and there was no need for the Heath. The team that I formed a consortium with back in, late 1999, 2000, thought we could regenerate it by making the Heath site a multi-occupancy. We had the skill base, we had scientific glassblowers, fine mechanics, engineers. All these skills could be transferred to serve different business sectors. It was going to take over 100 businesses to replace ICI, and we did that. There's over 150 now from 22 different business sectors. The old school labs, as I call them, are now servicing DNA, nanotechnologies, anything, including chemistry, but mainly other things. So it shows, if you look at space, it can be modified to do something else. So as we developed a good reputation, I know Lord Sainsbury stated that ours was one of the best regenerations he's ever seen. So we had the opportunity to replicate this. We advised other sites that were closing down on what they could do, but you can't turn it back into what it was. That's why it was closing. So you have to approach these things in a different way, with an open mind. Fast track forward, in 2010, I was asked to work with Sanofi down in Dagenham, and they were looking to save their site in their corporate world. That didn't work, but they kept me on to advise them through the transition for sale. Long story short, I ended up buying it. And within 4.5 years, just under 5 years, we transferred it into a multi-occupancy science park, university park, film studios, and attracted the biggest data center in Europe with £2.5 billion worth of investment. So that was good. And we did that in partnership, in collaboration with the local authority. And all I can say, very simply, it is amazing what you can achieve together if no one wants to take the credit. And think about that. because that's where it goes wrong. And that's where public sector doesn't necessarily work well with the private sector because there's too much point scoring. But we didn't, and we did something very special. A lot of people around here will know what London East is and what it's becoming now. So when I came back in 2019, I had the opportunity to think again about the Heath. And I was now in the stage of taking the learning, the replication, the working collaboratively with the private and public sector and turn the Heath for tomorrow. Because you can't have a 60s site and regenerate it forever. It comes to an end. You have to start thinking about developing it. And if you're going to develop it, you've got to think about the next 20, 30 years, like you just said, what keeps you awake at night. So we didn't really have the confidence in the team and had a good team of experts around me. So we went to RIBA, the Royal Institute of British Architects, and I did a global competition. I wanted to know the forward thinkers, the architects, the guys around the world, and how they looked at turning something like our site into something that's going to embrace technology for tomorrow. Thinking about driverless cars, they're going to become the norm. Just think about in 20 years' time how it's going to be different. And I didn't have the confidence in my own team to do it. What came back was phenomenal. And you've heard Dr. Paul Myers speak about vertical farming. And what came that really attracted me was how vertical farming can contribute to the economy of this area that was once the chemical industry that's in decline. So I worked with Paul, and I'd recommend anyone in this room or listening to this, go and see his vertical farm. Incredible what you'll learn. Vertical farming started from NASA, by the way. How are you going to grow food in space with no water, no soil? And he said something to me, and it stopped me in my tracks. He said, a 5,000 square meter unit vertical farm, if powered by renewable energy in our is the equivalent to 2.1 million trees, mature trees over 10 years. That's one. Now you think about that. And then you think of HyNet that's coming across the whole of the Northwest, and I'm the first port of call. That can now be replicated in town centres, as Paul was saying. There could be vertical farms feeding locally, pure food, pure leafy green food, powered by renewable. The Northwest now becomes a world leader in vertical farms. That's where we are at, and that's what you were talking about. So Paul became a member of the team. He's definitely going to be a voice of authority in this in the future years, and I'd listen to what he's got to say. So what I wanted to do was to create an environment. Best way to describe it very quickly is a 21st century Port Sunlight, a place where you can live, work and play, a place that can embrace technology for tomorrow and will be incorporated into the scheme. A place where people can grow old and stay, because those retirement villages, there's a place, grow on space, secure, a place where well-being naturally forms. In fact, it's exactly like Port Sunlight was 100 years ago. We're not inventing anything that hasn't been done before. We're just taking it and modernising it. The scheme itself, Heath Park, is now launched. It's quite new, so that's probably why it's not mentioned in a lot of the big schemes that are going on in the Liverpool City region. Hopefully it will next time round. And I honestly believe this will be the future of Runcorn. It'd be the rebirth of Runcorn, and it will bring new technologies, quality jobs, and it'll be a model that's going to be replicated elsewhere. So I'm quite proud of what we've achieved and work closely with Lord Dreamstone's team, with James and the DIT. And I have to say, superb help. You know, I'm a guy who's never had a grant in his life, so I've never gone down that public funding route. I've always done it out of our own cash. And it's quicker that way. But I really enjoyed working. I have, and we're the only ones in the Liverpool City region and the Northwest in the government atlas, the UK government atlas, which is quite an achievement to achieve that, because they put us through the mill to get it, believe you me. So what we've got is a shovel-ready scheme that does bring a return to investors. We've got an investors pack that spends over £1 million on the paperwork exercise, so it's very thorough. Everything we said is backed up by evidence. Anything we predicted is validated by an expert. So Have I waffled on a bit too long?
The audience is in the palm of your hand. Perhaps we'll stop now.
Okay, yes is the answer. Anyway, that's Heath Park.
Thank you, John. That's absolutely fascinating. That's great. Thank you. Let me come back to Slido. We do have a question, so I'm going to get that out of the way because we are going to run out of time more quickly than I care to think about. So I'm going to turn to this end of the table. Just so the questions around the industrial and logistics sector and the role it will play in creating inclusive communities across the city region, and how we make sure we protect logistics and land for logistics and that capability alongside the pressing need for housing, for work space, for all the kind of exciting things we've heard about. How do we do that? So maybe Rob, maybe I'll come to you first and then to Chris. Just give us a couple of seconds on that.
Yeah, obviously there'll be people better placed to discuss the industrial opportunities in and around in the city region than myself, who effectively we're asset managing a built asset, a held asset. But clearly, in terms of one thing we have looked at Grosvenor in the not too distant past is last mile logistics and having improving that capability on the edge of the city centre, reducing the number of vehicles that are coming into the city centre, consolidated deliveries, etc. And clearly there's benefits, a whole host of benefits for doing that, and there is big opportunities around the city centre for exactly that.
And are you worried that you won't get that last mile logistics that's able to support the Liverpool one and the city centre, and what you need from that?
It's not an immediate concern, I would say, but clearly it is on the agenda. Hence the taking this sort of initial look at it. But it's not currently something. But then obviously the work on reducing the number of lanes on the Strand, etc. It's all to improve the city centre environment, and the more sort of HGVs we can keep out of the city centre, the nicer the environment is for everybody. Clearly.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we were the original place where all the goods came into the city, into the port. Doesn't function like that anymore. So we're very much focused on ensuring that I said it before, that there is that mix. So we're not going to be building big logistics sheds and things like that in Liverpool waters, but just outside the Wall and 10 Streets area and beyond is obviously an area which has focus on that. More broadly for Peel, Wirral Waters and the team over there has considerable amount of logistics in there, and Peel as a major developer obviously has quite a lot of interest in developing that, and obviously the port and Liverpool too itself. So I think it's our planning and our thinking is about how we get last mile logistics into our site and how we service what we're delivering. So a lot of thought going into that side of things.
Thank you. I'll come back to this end of the table now, if I may, and I really wanted to follow up with both of you around this, coming back to inclusive communities, which is what the session's all about, and how we take people with us and how we make sure we're looking after existing communities' needs and so on. And I suppose my question to both Lisa and to Stephen is have you changed the way you've thought about that and done that as you've increasingly, and private sector partners increasingly, have focused on environmental, social impacts and so on? Has that been helpful? Has it been a catalyst to change the nature of the conversation? And what do you hear back from communities around those kind of issues? Lisa, would you like to?
Thank you. I think the first thing is absolutely consultation, and I think Stephen mentioned is the consultation and having your community backing before development is even thought about, actually building them into then wanting the same as everybody else wants. So that area is really important. But one of the things that we're seeing in our developments in St Helens is that the importance of the both the social value but also the environmental value. I think before we talked about green, we really now want to deliver green development and development that has as little impact on our environment as possible. And I think we heard last night at the dinner from the young people, and I think it's for the future that we are building these developments, and it's them who will hold us to account. And I think our engagement with our young people has meant that they've really told us that that's important. So that making sure that what we build and how we build it has as little impact on the environment as possible is really important. I think that's also important as the finance markets. We're seeing more and more about how the finance markets are looking at investment differently. And then it's about scale. So one of the office accommodation that we're looking at building in St Helens, if you're doing something at the right scale, you can do it at a green level. So we're looking at potentially building the first timber framed office outside of London as well. And because we can build at the right scale in the town, again, it's that not competing with each other. It's about offering that complementary. But I think it's about that delivering for our young people an environment that they can be proud of in the future. I think the second one is social value and the jobs and the skills and making sure that we have workforce ready. And that's where the partnership comes in. That's where the public sector, private sector partnership to help those developments to prepare before the development. So whilst we are looking at developing land, we all are already looking at developing the workforce as well. So if you take Freeport and the inclusive this Freeport and the investment that there will be through Freeport into the skills for local people to provide those jobs, then I think then you've got that real balance of us all playing our part. And I think that's the key. Everybody playing to their strengths and knowing what they're good at and doing the bit that they're good at.
Yeah, I'd agree with Lisa on that one. The like all local authorities, climate authority, many of us, the climate emergency is front of mind, and that underpins much of the visioning work that starts to emerge. In the case of the Strand Shopping Centre, for example, the carbon footprint of repurposing the existing asset, which is largely structurally sound, is about a third of the carbon footprint of demolition and reconstruction. And that type of messaging underpins conversations with communities about options for the future. You asked about change of how we approached. The Southport town deal, only one town in the country got a larger town deal than Southport. And what Lisa just
bitter.
And what underpinned that was a very robust consultation engagement process that we took a lot from. And I think there's two things we'd highlight that I think we're applying elsewhere, and certainly relevance was in Bootle with what we're doing now. One is the move from consultation as an event to an ongoing conversation, and the feedback around, I've ticked a box, you've asked me a question, I filled in a form, and I don't see anything until the end. And the ongoing conversation, the iterative process, and people feeling involved and feeling ownership is really impactful, really, really powerful, hugely important in the town deal, and has been really impactful in terms of the work on Bootle to date. The second bit of it is Lisa's really important point on youth perspective in all of this. In the case of Bootle, we start to think about leisure uses, things like esports and gaming that, with respect, I don't know the first thing about what I see goes on in the kids' bedrooms, but there's a market here, there's opportunity here, and the conversation with under 16s, 18s is very different to the average consultee respondent, average consultee or consultation respondent. We had 2,000 responses to the initial Southport Town Deal consultation. 2% of them were below the age of 35. So it took something more proactive. What we now have in Southport, and we're setting up in Bootle, is a shadow board. It's an idea, we stole it from the fashion houses that do this. So rather than having a token 18-year-old around the table with the existing town deal board, is a group of under 18s working through these challenges and opportunities, bringing a completely different perspective and challenge. And it's trying to be more proactive in that. It's not good enough to say, well, there's a consultation website, or can you fill in this 40-page questionnaire? It's how do you have a conversation with a high school student, engages them in the place and its future and their role in it, and that takes more proactivity. It's labour intensive, takes a lot of time. Our engagement with community partners in the Strand is a brilliant example. It's a lot of time and senior officer time in building and sustaining those relationships, but it's hugely impactful when you get it right. And they offer a route to engagement with a huge number of our communities as well. But they're integral to the future of these places. We've had invaluable support from partners like Avis and Young and K2 Architects and Ilandi, people who know the things that we don't know. And one of the questions we asked was around the role of this type of the tenants in the Strand. And the passionate feedback was that not only do they drive footfall, but they're people that make this distinct. The reason this is Bootle and can only be Bootle is because of partners like that and the offer they provide. We've got a children's bookshop that runs the Bootle Children's Literature Festival in there. We've got a partner called The Big Onion who've got a mini market set up with all startup businesses supporting young entrepreneurs. We've got the Tool Shed. We've got a theatre company in this, and these are all shaping the place in a way that is distinct and it's owned by that community. If we do, we've got this huge amount of opportunity for learning from elsewhere, but if we only do what everyone else has always done, we'll be the same as everywhere else. And one of the challenges that certainly that Lisa and I have is we need to do something different, but our different needs to be different to Lisa's different. And that regional proposition comes from something that's complementary, but they all need to be distinct from each other. And that cohesive vision that I think we've got is a big part of hopefully what we bring to market here as a potential partner.
Thank you. And if you had a magic wand, is there one thing that you would ask for that you think would unlock even more opportunity and investment?
The region should be at the forefront of thinking for levelling up, for example. So central government input, engagement, support. But I think it's the chance to from purposes of today, is the chance to engage with partners, the chance to share the vision, not just in Sefton and Bootle and St Helens, but across the region, but also to capture ideas, perspectives, a chance to shape something that works for everybody. The right thing will work for all of us. I mean, phrases like purposeful, profit are becoming ever more commonly used. But as we said before, there shouldn't be a trade-off between those social environmental outcomes and financial sustainability that we all need.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to be ambitious and in the last minute try and get a soundbite from each of my panel members to the same question of what's the one thing that would unlock even more opportunity and investment into the region. Lisa?
I think if it was me, it would be a magic one, like did away with competition, and somehow made the world a place where we wanted to work together. I think the best examples are when partners really work together and where they play their strengths. So that would be mine. No competition, but very much complementary.
Thank you very much. Rob?
I've wrote down some words that I keep hearing last night and today, and that's collaboration, partnership, passion and pride. I think that's what makes Liverpool stand out and will continue to make Liverpool stand out. So for me, it's focusing on those core fundamentals of what Liverpool is.
Thank you. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the key for us is that social change. We're delivering physical investment, we're delivering physical development on our site. But I think for me, and it's not really a magic wand, I suppose, but for me, it's about delivery of that social change on the ground. So you should be able to see that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Thank you. And John, last word to you.
I suppose if we all did things for the right reasons, if we do things in the right way for the right reasons, that would be a big change. Physically, I'd like to see across the city region, strategically placed streets with lids, as I call it, and rather than architects designing the inside of town centres, create a different environment, make that space different, and see the business community build around that. Within that, B&Q will have a shop showing you how to do things rather than selling you things. Buy less, spend more, create a new environment. And I'd like to see the Mersey, now the new stadiums being built a bit like the Thames, where you've got Uber taxis, bring the Mersey alive. And from that transportation, you will build. So they're the types of things I'd like to see happen.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm sorry that we're out of time. There's so much more we could talk about, but can I ask those in the room to join me in thanking my fantastic panel?